o'clock, so we're going to start the stream now. And we're live.
All right, let's call to order this meeting of the May 17th special board meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education. For the roll call, all members are present. 3 are present in person and 2 virtually. Will you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any proposed amendments to the agenda? I have none. Hearing none, we will move on to Mr. Hawkins' remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Good evening, and thanks for tuning in to our May Board of Education meeting. Next week concludes what has to be the most unusual school year any of us have experienced. I want to commend our staff, students, and families for their flexibility and resilience as we persevered through the many transitions encountered as a result of the pandemic. It certainly appears we're reaching the long-awaited other side, and hopefully next year can return to normal. This past Saturday, our seniors and their guests had prom. A special thanks to our high school staff members and our downtown partners who worked to make this a special event for our students. While it was a little different this year, the kids seemed to have a great time. Spring sports are gearing up for postseason play in the coming weeks. Our student athletes have worked very hard throughout their seasons, and postseason is a chance to shine. So good luck to them as the regular season winds down and the postseason kicks off. Graduation is scheduled for Saturday, May 29th at 10 a.m. at Alltech Arena at the Kentucky Horse Park. I'm so grateful we can have a more traditional ceremony for our seniors this year. I know our students and their families are very excited about this milestone. Thanks again for tuning in this evening. It's an honor to serve as your superintendent, and I know with all of us working together, we can become the flagship school district in Kentucky.
Maybe one proposed amendment to the agenda. Ms. McCown, would you like to share anything about prom or your senior year as we look graduation?
It has definitely been a very crazy year, as everybody knows, but I'm so glad that we could have a prom. I'm so glad that graduation is scheduled too. It was a little disheartening at first to miss out on a lot of stuff from our first semester, but returning to in-person the second semester has been great, and I'm just happy to be here. I'm very excited to graduate. It's going to be very different leaving Woodford County. I love it here. Love the people, love my teachers. So it's a little sad. It's bittersweet though. I'm very excited for the next chapter and just want to thank everybody for their hard work and letting us come back to school and hosting prom and graduation. We're all very thankful.
Thank you. Do you know where you're heading next year and what you're going to do?
Western Kentucky University. I will be majoring in broadcast journalism. They have a really good program for that, one of the best in the nation. So hopefully one day you will see me on ESPN as a sports broadcaster. That's the goal. So
go Hilltoppers. All right, thank you. We'll move next to the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Ms. Springate and Ms. Richardson, do you want to vote by show of hands this week? Is that easier?
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine.
All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Ms. Cooper, is there any public comment? There's one public comment. Ms. Bailey will share with us.
Okay, this comment is from Marty and George J. Woodford County board members, teachers are very appreciative of your support for a 2% raise across the board pay raise as listed in the draft budget tonight. We need to keep all of our excellent employees by becoming more competitive with the surrounding school districts. Thank you for this vote of confidence. Sincerely, Marty and George Day.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve, or would any member like to remove any one item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
On it, I'm sorry. And I
I'm
should
sorry,
have
before
asked
we vote, Ms. McHale has a question.
on the pay schedule, maybe that's in the next section.
That's it, yep.
Okay, so on the surplus property, what do we actually do with the surplus property?
Yeah, these are the senior devices that we've surplus for the last several years, that we give to them as a graduation gift.
Okay, they take them with them then? Okay, thank you.
Sometimes we'll do auctions depending on what the surplus equipment is. So it just varies. Some of it may be end of year life or end of life technology that we basically, somebody just comes and takes. So it just depends.
Okay, yeah, I saw most of it is the
There are
Chromebooks.
technology recycle companies, and we once you all surplus them, then we give them to them, other than things like the senior devices, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any further questions? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye, or raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Move into the regular agenda, Mr. Hawkins.
Sure. Item A, we would ask that you accept the notification of personnel matters that have occurred since the last board meeting.
Is there a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Item B, we would ask that you accept the notification of payment of bills.
Is there a motion to accept notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Is there, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the April 19th, 2021 board meeting?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the April 26, 2021 board meeting? Ms. Glass, you cannot vote on this one.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. The chair seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. You want me to keep going or?
I can. Item E, we would ask you to approve awarding the bid for the 21-22 gas and diesel bid based on the tabulation sheets.
Is there a motion to approve that awarding of bid?
So
So,
moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. The motion carries 5-0.
Item F, we have reached out to KDE. We have not gotten a firm response on whether federal funds can be utilized to supplement our ETC program. We still believe that this is the right move moving forward to increase the tuition from $185 to $200 per month. So we would ask that you approve that.
Okay, and if we do find that those funds are available, is this something that we could change or just revisit in a year?
You could, yes. We could absolutely revisit it if you feel like it would need to be lowered at that time. The thing that I think we have to remember is that the federal funds are there for a limited time, so it's probably coming back at some point if you were to reduce it.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the 2021-2022 ETC tuition?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I will second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Item G, we would ask that you approve the update in the nursing positions and move away from designated 3 LPN positions and 3 RN positions to just have 6 positions and that they would be paid according to their credentials.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the update in nursing position classifications?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Item H, this is an updated job description for half of a position within the business office, that it would go to all account clerk 2, and instead of being a split position of secretarial and account clerk.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the updated job description and updated FTE percentage for this position?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Item I, we would ask for you to approve the FY 21-22 salary schedules, which do include a 2% across the board raise for all employees.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the FY 2021-2022 salary schedules?
So moved.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Springate. Is that okay, Ms. Springate?
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to have a little discussion about this item. In looking at the tentative budget last week and trying to reconcile all of that information with the concerns about restricting the funds for the high school and what that does to the long-term budget, I am concerned about approving an additional $550,000 roughly dollars every year and not approving any revenue to offset that. I may be the only one. I'm this is money coming from the general fund, which is where that restricted money also comes from. And it's a greater amount, but it comes with a recommendation of approval with no offsetting revenue.
Ms. Bradley, I have a question.
Okay.
So, approving the 2% raise this year, that money is what we're suggesting is that comes out of the SR money, is that correct? But then every other year after that, it'll come out of the general fund?
No. The ESSER's funding paid for the supplements that we approved last week that were a one-time supplement for kind of the above and beyond job duties that the employees carried out. This would be a 2% pay increase that also goes along with our step increases each year for a total of about $550,000, and that's funded by the general fund each year.
I just wanted to make it clear that that money is not in any point in time coming from the federal funds that we just got for the COVID relief fund. So thank you.
Sure. Is there any? Go ahead, Ms. Springate.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I have a little bit of a delay, so it's hard to know when to jump in. I would just say that I think that this 2% across the board salary increase is long overdue. I think that, at some point we have to realize that our salary compensation has to be competitive with our neighbors. And when it's very out of whack, we cannot get or keep qualified staff. And I think that we really saw, the shortage with bus drivers of when we fail to compensate and plan accordingly. And so I think that this is really an overdue increase in the salary schedule. And I do think that, to your concern, we absolutely should sit down and have a budget work session and just kind of go over things and make sure that we know where we're at, what we have, what we're spending, and really just look at the big picture. But as far as priorities, I think this is absolutely priority number one, and I'm in full support of this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I agree with the idea that that our employees are deserving of this raise. I'm not sure that approving it before we sit down and do a work session or, develop a budget committee to look at all of the costs and ways that we could offset this or increase revenue. I'm concerned about the timelines of these, but I totally agree that with your points that our staff are deserving. I am not sure this isn't something that we need to revisit in a couple of months after we have sat down and looked at those numbers as a board. But that is just my opinion. Ms. McHale, do you have any discussion?
When was the last time we had a salary increase?
It's been at least 4 years for an across the board.
We did some last year that were for our maintenance staff and our bus drivers, and we've done a substitute raise.
We just did bus drivers and subs last year. I think we did our maintenance staff and some other pieces of the salary schedule the year before that.
Okay.
But,
I'm sorry.
But the across the board. The only dilemma that you have, Ms. Bradley, is if you wait 2 months, then that becomes a retroactive pay. And we tried that last year and we were told we couldn't do it. So salary schedules are to be set within a certain amount of time prior to the beginning of the school year. And so that's why we typically have done those in May. So it would be considered a retroactive pay because you do have some folks that start their contracts in July. And if their salary is based on the salary schedule, which it all is, then that would be considered retroactive at that point.
So what would happen if the salary schedule was adjusted in August or September going forward? But it wasn't.
It becomes a nightmare for payroll to be able to adjust that at that point in time once plus not everybody would get the full benefit from a retirement standpoint. So
how does that work?
Because part of their salary would have already been paid out, so they wouldn't have gotten the first month or two at the new rate. If you waited until August or September, folks who started in July would not see the full amount of the increase. And so I understand your concern. To me, I think the board has to make a decision. If you don't restrict $350,000, that's in the budget. That's money that can be applied toward this. And then you also have, even if you take a flat rate, that typically generates some additional revenue, which could potentially cover the vast majority of this.
And this is Sherry. I just want to say that that we always do salary schedules in May, that's just when they're done. And I think that what we've done in the past is just said, well, we'll look at raises later, we'll look at raises later, we'll look at raises later. And what's happened is we've run into some trouble. I know Mr. Chenoweth, the last time we talked about doing a retroactive raise, said that wasn't an option. So really, it's been a number of years. And at this point, I think that, we really just need to put our actions behind our words and, follow this recommendation.
And I understand that completely, but do you understand my confusion in the notion that restricting, if we're not even looking at what the money is being used for, that restricting $350,000 for 20 years is devastating, but adding a cost of $550,000 is just something we have to do, with not a concern for the fact that that isn't just for 20 years, that's forever. I can't
understand what you're saying. Yeah, I do. And I do think that we need to sit down and have a budget work session and look at what we're spending and what we're taking in and how this all fits together. But I think that's something that we do every year, and I definitely think that's something that we need to do. But, every month we approve expenses and we do it on a certain kind of schedule based on when things have to be approved and when things are taken out and how the payroll and all the deductions go. And what Mr. Chenoweth has clearly said to us is that we cannot do a retroactive raise. Salary schedules are done in May, so now would be the time to kind of do that. And I do think that we should sit down and look at our spending. We need to do a budget session. I asked for that back in January when we had the very first budget, and I'm hopeful that we can kind of do that. I know we've been kind of crazy with lots of different priorities and lots of things going on. But again, I think that our actions and our priorities have to, have to really be in line. And I think this is something that, districts do all the time. Salary schedules are done at this time of the year. And so I think it's appropriate.
And I think that something else that districts do often is sit down and take a look at their costs. And when we did that, there was a whole lot of pushback that we could not cut anything. There were no programs, there were no costs, or very little to help offset even the $350,000. I just think if the board approves this tonight, and I agree, once again, let me say, I understand our staff is deserving of this raise. I just want to make sure then that just like when budgeting at our home level, we're going to have to offset this. And that will come at the cost of some other things. And we can prioritize our staff. That's okay. I just want to make sure then in 2 months when we have to balance this, that we're not saying, you know what, we shouldn't have to cut anything. We shouldn't have to do this. We have to understand that voting this way tonight will result in a have to in a couple of months or a year. Ms. McHale, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, I think you make this a priority in your budget, and I agree 100%. It is very concerning to me that we go into another deficit year, even with a preliminary budget, and looking at what the contingency is that we have, how long we'll be able to continue to do that. Having said that, though, I do think that we need to make it a priority, and to your point, the community needs to understand that there could be other repercussions from that.
And I think any budget as big as the school's budget should have a good close look. We talked about this, and I think, Mr. Hawkins, you were in agreement that those are things that we need to look at and see, are these still the best best uses of the money that we're entrusted with. I just want to make sure that we go into this with both eyes open.
I fully understand that, and I would like to say I don't know that there was pushback when we were looking at the list of expenses. We provided about as detailed a list of expenses as you can find, and not one time did we as a group ever sit down and go through those.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean pushback from you.
So, again, I think that is something, and so we find ourselves in a similar position. And again, I think right now, what I am saying, and I think what we are saying as a staff, is that we've got to do this to keep up. If we don't, I think we risk losing quality employees. We already struggle competing with the district that's just to our east. We can't afford to fall behind other districts that border us, because if we do, then we find a very difficult time trying to recruit and retain people. And so, I've said this for the last couple of years, that we've got to figure out a way to make this happen for our staff.
Okay, Ms. Glass?
You mentioned the SEEK increase, Mr. Hawkins. Can you explain that a little bit? I'm not super.
It's not necessarily a SEEK increase, but even with the flat rate.
Step increase.
A step increase, just everybody that moves forward a year on the salary schedule, there is a slight increase in the salary schedule just by moving up a year of experience.
Okay.
So it's that, and then the 2% on top of that.
Okay.
And to clarify, I didn't mean pushback in you or the staff providing the costs. I meant pushback on the willingness of those cost-cutting measures to be made. That there was a list of things. These are the things that the board is thinking of cutting, and obviously no one wants their program to be cut. No one wants to not do the biggest interventions that we can in the summer you know, there, you just have to acknowledge that this is gonna have to be reconciled. That, I've said that now, and I don't mean to keep harping on the same point, and if there's no further discussion, we can vote.
I think it is an important thing to note. I think if we make that a priority in the budget, and I think if Mr. Hawkins and his staff have noted that as a priority for the budget, I think that's the time that you have to have those conversations. And what is important in the budget this year to do, knowing that some of the items, maybe they're not repeating, some of those items could be repeating, this would be an item that would be repeating, at least for the staff that stays here over the course of the next however many years. But I think that's normal. I think that if we approve this, then that becomes a must-do, and maybe it's a must compensate. And I don't think that's unreasonable either.
Okay. Ms. Richardson?
I just think that, you know, this is a forever commitment. We're in a very, we're kind of in a pinch right now. Our community, our staff, our teachers have all made it clear that we do need a new high school. From what I've heard from our community, that's been a top priority. I do agree that our teachers deserve a raise. I'm just not sure if right now in our budget it's the time to take that on. I wish that we could vote as a board to maybe meet and have a work session on this and figure it out before we decide whether we're going to do it or not. So, however the board votes is fine, but I'm just not sure if this is the right time. It seems a little bit slight to me that this is the time that this is coming up when our teachers haven't had this significant of a raise in quite some time. To say that that's a top priority by members of the board who have been here for many years, and all of a sudden now it's a top priority. I don't have a good feeling about it, but, we'll vote, and that's how I feel.
To her question, Mr. Hawkins, so if it has to be done in May, that's kind of the drop dead.
We have a responsibility to do it. I forget how many days it is prior to the first student day that the staff has to have a reasonable assurance of what their salary is going to be for the coming year. We have done that at our May board meeting.
Okay, Ms. Glass?
Ms. Bradley, is Grant with us tonight?
Mr. Chenoweth could not attend. He had a hearing in another county tonight. We could take a recess, and I could try to reach him if he hasn't gone into that hearing.
I would be fine with that if he could tell us, the very last day that we could possibly do this, so that we could meet together and have a work session. I think that would be beneficial to everyone.
Okay.
And Ms. Bradley, I would just say that I did ask for a work session about teacher raises in January when we talked about the draft budget. And I would also just say that I have brought teacher raises on the agenda for votes numerous times over the past 2 to 3 years. So I don't think it's a surprise necessarily. I think it's definitely something that needs to be, we really need to put our actions behind our words at some point. Like you said, the budget process, how that works is you have your priorities. The board kind of dictates the overall priorities. And then, we might have to sit down and have that work session and have those hard discussions. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that we're going to have to do that regardless. If you look at the budgets that have been presented to us this year, they are deficit budgets yet again this year. We've had that. This will be the 3rd year in a row. And so, sitting down and having those hard discussions, that's definitely something that we should do. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's appropriate and a good thing. But I also think that it's appropriate and a good thing for us to, vote on this tonight. And so that would be included in something that we would be looking at when we do that budget session.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Cooper.
The statute reads, the superintendent shall give notice not later than 45 days before the first student attendance day.
The statute reads that the superintendent shall not give notice later than 45 days before the first student attendance day. So,
June 15th, whichever occurs earlier.
or June 15th, I'm sorry,
Or June 15th, whichever occurs earlier.
or June 15th, whichever occurs earlier. So 45 days prior to the first school day, or June 15th is when it has to be done according to statute.
Whichever is earlier.
Okay,
So in this case, June 15th would be earlier.
okay. What, that's 45 days, is it, so it's obviously calendar days. Okay, well, hearing Ms. Richardson's request and then Ms. Springgate's request that we get the advice from Mr. Chenoweth and or vote on this tonight, I would ask for a 5-minute recess and see if Mr. Hawkins and I can reach Mr. Chenoweth and get back to the board on what he says.
Statute books. He should know about it.
Hey, how's the smile behind the mask?
Mr. Hawkins, I saw y'all at the club eating after, was it Mother's Day? How was Annabeth's follow-up for her meeting? I haven't got to see it. Oh, it's tomorrow? Wow.
We'll see where she is at that point.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully everything goes well.
I may have to have some kind of like signal to you all, like, yeah, I got this precision check, and I mean, the thing is that she said, I mean, she said, you can come in every time, and I can use a phone call, and she said, I've already went on, and so she said, you know, hurry in there. Here's this thing. I mean, I don't think it's technically straight, because there's a bigger gap there than there normally is, but. It's just that, I think the big part is, last couple of years, I was with myself back on teeth, and I always gone with front teeth. So, I would think so, my dentist said she went out before this.
This anyway.
Okay, we'll return from the recess now. Ms. Springate, Ms. Richardson, can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
I was not able to reach Mr. Chenoweth or Mr. Shaw tonight. Again, that is not through fault of theirs. They did notify us that that Mr. Chenoweth had a hearing tonight and wouldn't be available, but I thought it was worth a try. Is there any further discussion on this agenda item?
This is Sherry. I would just say that I really don't feel like we need the advice of an attorney on this. Angel read the statute and Mr. Hawkins has advised, about the process. So I feel comfortable moving forward. I don't think this is an attorney question.
Okay, and what Mr. Hawkins and Ms. Cooper were able to figure out is the last date to do this would be June 15th, and we do have our planning meeting on June 14th. So if the board did want to have a budget session prior to the June 14th planning meeting, we could do that then.
I would be fine with that.
Ms. McHale or Ms. Glass?
That's fine with me.
I'm fine with that too.
So we would need to add this agenda item to our June.
What's the purpose of the work session?
I think the work session would be to identify the best way to offset these costs for for all of the budget, and to see where we can change things to make it a priority to accomplish this raise for our employees.
So are you saying what areas to reduce?
If we're going to increase one side, I think, yes, we have
Okay.
to.
But we haven't done that for other restrictions.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood I thought we were just.
With all due respect, I would just,
Hold on, just a second.
We definitely
Wait a
have
second.
made it very clear.
Wait just a second, Ms.
I think
Richardson.
definitely-
Hold on just a second. We can't everybody started talking at the same time. We'll go around again. We'll start with Ms. McHale, then we'll go to Ms. Richardson and Ms. Springate.
So I just thought we were going to talk more about what this meant for the budget and not take action on the overall budget. I do think that that's gonna have some other implications, and I do think that it needs to be a conversation about more than a salary schedule. My understanding was that we would set the priority, that this is something that would be included or would not be included, to then vote on June 14th later on. And the budget discussion is a much bigger discussion that includes multiple items.
Okay, so your notion of were you able to hear her or no?
I'm sorry, Danny, I had a hard time hearing. Could you just kind of repeat?
Is that better?
Please?
Is that better? Okay, so my thought was that this meeting would be to discuss and agree that this would become a priority for us for the budget, not to discuss what to offset with the budget, to include it, because there are many items I think that would be up for discussion when you're talking about balancing a budget. And I don't think you can talk about only one of those in isolation to talk about balancing a budget. This doesn't even come close to the deficit that we have. So I think that's a much bigger discussion.
Okay.
I do think that what is important in going into any budget is identifying what your priorities are. What are our must-haves? Is this a must-have? Yes or no? And then you go into the rest of the planning.
Okay, and I think that sounds totally logical. I do think, to the bigger point, that, we have a bigger number that needs to be balanced. And yes, you could get a bit down the rabbit hole, but I do think we have to start having those discussions.
Absolutely.
And that this might be a good place to say, yes, our priority here is to accomplish a 2% raise, or our priority is to accomplish a 2% raise, and we know that in June, we're going to have to revisit the restriction of the funds for the new high school. So where do our priorities lie, and what are we willing to do to get to those things, to get to a higher rate for our employees, or to get a new building, and to get a new building? Now, Ms. Richardson?
I agree, and that's why I think that having a work session to be able to sit down and everyone kind of talk about that and read through everything that we have is a good idea. I think it's responsible of us to sit down and do that. I think that if we have the time where we can sit down and do that, why wouldn't we? It seems like it makes perfect sense to me not to rush it, to make sure that we're making clear decisions before we decide what to do.
Okay, Ms. Springate.
I would just say that I asked for that work session in January when we had the very first draft budget with a huge deficit again this year. We've had plenty of time to do that. I agree with Ms. McHale how budgeting is done, and was reiterated again at KSBA this weekend in a session I went to, was that the board needs to set the priorities, and then you sit down at the work session and look at all the pieces and kind of shuffle things around and have those open and honest discussions. But it really is more than just one item at this point that's clear. It's a work session that's long overdue, and I completely welcome it. But I do believe that we have a motion and a second on the floor, and we need to vote on the 2021-2022 salary schedule tonight. Thank you.
I think we could move this as an agenda item to next month. Is that correct, Mr. Hawkins?
You've got a motion on the floor right now. It has to be voted on before you can do anything else with the agenda item, my understanding.
The motion can be rescinded, can it not?
If the person who made the motion and the person who made the second wish to rescind it.
I think it's just the person that made the motion.
That I mean, that's a Robert's rules, I guess. But I guess the only thing I would say is, I think you know tonight whether it's a priority or not. And if it's a priority, then you can vote to approve the salary schedule, and then you can have a work session to determine how you can best implement that. I don't know that a work session is going to allow you to say, do we want to do raises or do we not want to do raises? I think you can make that decision tonight.
Okay, is there any further discussion? And I believe, Ms. McHale, you made the motion. Do you want to rescind your motion, or do you want to leave it?
I would like to leave it.
Okay, then we will vote. I think probably it's easiest to go around on this one. So we'll just go in order around the table. Ms. McHale?
Aye.
Ms. Richardson?
Nay.
Ms. Springate?
Aye.
Ms. Glass?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes 4-1. I would still like the budget session prior to the June 14th meeting.
Okay.
So if everybody could please put that on their calendars for 5 o'clock, we will meet immediately preceding the meeting for a budget work session. Okay, the next item.
The auditor, we ask you to approve the auditor contract for the 21-22.
Is there a motion to approve the auditor contract?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Just a quick question. How long have we had our auditors?
And were we able to follow up on my question from last week about the rotation that we've had in place? Mr. Martello says it's at least 3 years, and I couldn't hear the end of what you said, Mr. Martello.
We've had the auditor for at least 3 years. And yes, they do rotate. They'll rotate the lead auditor within the firm, so we get a mix of different eyes, on the audit every year.
And he's sharing again what we heard last week, that they do rotate the lead auditor so that there's different eyes on the audit each year from that same firm. So if that is the recommendation of the superintendent and the chief financial officer, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Ms. Richardson and Ms. Springate voted aye, so the motion carries 5-0.
And then we would ask for your approval on the 21-22 tentative budget, knowing this is
Supplemental.
part 2.
Skipped one.
I've got mine that says auditor contract and the tentative budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Knowing that this is step 2 of the 3-step process as far as budgeting, and that the final working budget would not be approved until September, once we have a firm handle on what our assessments will be, and the tax rates would have been set at that point in time. And our recommendation is to leave it with the flat tax rate.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the 2021-2022 tentative budget
Which version?
with the flat rate as recommended by Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Martello?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. I think on the budget we'll go around just to make sure that we're all on the same page again. Ms. McHale?
Yeah, I do think that it's a big lessons learned, especially as we come together for a first-time board this year, that we do need to have these discussions earlier in the process. And typically you would lay out, and we would agree right at the beginning what the priorities are. Having said that, it didn't happen, so I think we just need to move forward. And I'll look forward to having some work sessions so that we can actually get that done by the time the final budget is presented. I think typically you would not want to see your base assumptions change from one version to the other. It's really just fine tuning. What is your inflation? What are the tax rates doing? So that would be my only comment.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's a welcome input for all of us. Ms. Richardson?
Am I voting right now, or do you just have a
No, just
comment?
if you have any comment.
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Springate?
No, I am very excited about the work session. I think that's a great thing, and I'm thankful that we have scheduled that, so thank you.
All right, Ms. Glass?
No comment.
Okay, and I would say that just once again, I will reiterate my concern about increasing spending without a recommended revenue increase. So we will vote now. Ms. McHale?
I'll vote aye on the tentative budget
At the flat rate.
at the flat rate.
Thank you. Ms. Richardson?
Nay.
Ms. Springate?
Aye.
Ms. Glass?
Aye.
And the chair votes nay. The next item.
We ask you to approve the treasurer's fidelity bond.
I assume there is no comment on this item, but is there a motion to approve the treasurer's fidelity bond?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Glass. Is there any comment? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye and raise your hand. Aye. The motion carries 5-0.
The next item we would ask for you to approve our school district implementing the supplemental school year per Senate Bill 128.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the supplemental school year in accordance with Senate Bill 128? The chair moves that this be approved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Springate. All those or is there any discussion?
Just one quick thing. I think we did cover this last week, but there is a waiver that they sign, right? Is that what we talked about? That they, just to make sure that if the parents are agreeing to take the supplemental year, that they understand the repercussions that.
We will be sending them a form that they have to sign off on, and then particularly middle and high, 8th through 12,
Right.
we'll be meeting and dealing with them more individually, because at the elementary level, it would simply be repeating the grade.
Okay, I thought so, I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of approving the supplemental school year, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Richardson? Did you raise your hand? You're a little bit choppy, I'm sorry. Yep. All right, the motion carries 5-0.
Item N, we had our final public hearing as required as part of the district facilities planning process last Tuesday, and you have the hearing report in your packet, and we would ask for you to approve that so that it can be submitted to the Department of Education.
All right, is there a motion to approve the public hearing report from the district's facility process?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Item O, we would ask for you to approve the renewal bids for property, automobile, general liability, inland marine, and the umbrella insurance for next year.
Is there a motion to approve the renewal of bids for property, automobile, general liability, inland, marine, and umbrella?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion? I really thought the inland marine
I
would
was
bring
gonna say the same thing.
bring a lot of questions, but we'll move on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The two members voting virtually both raise their hands, so the motion carries 5-0. All right, the next item is soliciting questions for a Q&A session for any superintendent finalists, including a time frame, a way to gather the questions, and how best to record these and publicize them for the community. Because this doesn't apply to any specific candidate, it does need to be handled in an open meeting. So Ms. Cooper and Mr. Gibson graciously worked together to solicit questions from our middle and high school students as well as our staff, and those questions were compiled and sent to the board to review. I think if any board members want to pull out some of the questions that they liked, we can discuss that now. And what we had kind of put forward as an option for how we would best do this, because we can't do a town hall the way that we did in the past with COVID restrictions, we'll have a Q&A time, and Ms. Bailey will ask the same set of questions to each of the candidates, and then we'll post that on our website and on our Facebook page so that the community has a chance to get to know each of the candidates. I can go first on the questions that I pulled out that I thought were good ones. Obviously the snow day questions are fun, but maybe not the meat of what we want to get to. I thought the question, what does it mean to trust your teachers? In other words, how should a superintendent both lead their teachers but also show teachers that they are trusted to make instructional decisions based on their own experience and professional judgment? I also pulled out, what is one thing that kids will gain from you being superintendent? Why do you want this job, and what makes you different than the other candidates? What do you think got you to this point? Would you attend school sporting? And I'm inferring that this student also meant any other extracurricular events. Please describe your view on implementing STEAM integration into the curriculum. Do you see this as an independent class, such as PE, music, library, Chinese, and art? What steps will you take to ensure equity amongst students? How will you ensure that your staff's time is respected? And what would your number one priority be if you were selected to be the next superintendent of Woodford County Schools? Ms. McHale, did you
Nothing to add to yours, just the question on how long are we going to give to the candidates to answer those questions?
Not very long.
Right.
Because it's, we're hoping just to do, a 15 or 20 minutes. So I think probably if we did 2 minutes per question and asked roughly 10 questions, and surely we don't have to choose the ones that I identified. These were just some of the ones that I thought were really good. Ms. Richardson?
I think the one that stood out to me was what was your number one priority as superintendent. So other than that, I mean, I do agree that I think giving a couple of minutes per question is a good idea.
Okay, Ms. Springate?
It was a very, very long list, and there were a lot of good questions. I think that trying to be representative about the questions and throw in, a few from each kind of general, overall kind of category is a good idea.
Okay.
And so I guess I would just say that if any board members, to me, it would be a good idea just to allow any board members to submit any of their favorites to you, and you could kind of just call that list down to a manageable number that you think would be appropriate for the time.
Okay. That's certainly fine. I think I pulled out 9. And yes, if you guys want to send them, I can select some from each board member's questions. I agree, there were tons of really good questions. Ms. Glass?
Yeah, I agree. I'm having trouble whittling them down. So I think if we all submit a couple, how many ever we decide, 4 or 5 questions, and I like the idea of having kind of a couple questions from each group, so to speak, I guess, if that makes sense, kind of category.
Okay, I would just remind everyone that we have to do this tomorrow. So maybe if you can send those to me tonight, I'll try and group them together.
Should we maybe just say everybody send you 2? That's 10 questions total, 20 minutes.
But if everyone sends me the same 2.
If we send the same 2, then we're in trouble,
Yeah.
yes. So are they going to be ranked? Should we rank them?
I think
1, 2, 3.
we could do that. Everyone could send 2, and then Miss Bailey and I could look at them, and we could trust her judgment to kind of group them together and try and get different types of questions, and we can pull out 10. If that's agreeable to everyone.
Good with me.
That's fine with me.
All right. Mr. Hawkins, do we need a vote on this?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. If you'll send them to me tonight, that would be great. The next item is item Q, and that will be an action item for the board. We need to have a motion, a second, and a vote to say that the work of the screening committee has been completed. Because it's a statutory committee, we do need to declare their work complete. So is there a motion to vote for the screening committee's work to have been done successfully and completely?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Miss Bradley?
Yes.
Can we have discussion on this?
Of course. I'm sorry.
Okay, I would just like to say that we have been, I know that the board was contacted by a concerned constituent. I'm assuming it's a constituent. It's kind of a little bit iffy if it's a real person to me. I've reached back out to this person, just stating that, they were very disappointed in the board choosing the 4 candidates that we have chosen. It's one of those random kind of emails, and I can't really get a real response back from this person, but, they're really disappointed with the candidates that we've chosen and the fact that there are not any female or minority candidates. I know that you sat on that committee. Are you able to tell us anything about the candidates that were the entire pool of candidates? Were there any minorities or women that applied for the job?
I am not able to share that information.
Okay, when are we as a board able to share that information?
The demographic information that we could publicly release was released by Mr. Martin at our joint meeting. It's my understanding that the rest of the candidate information is private, and I can clarify that with Mr. Chenoweth and Mr. Martin and get back to the board on that. But
are we able to direct this person to any of the committee members to possibly talk to them about candidates that were, that had applied, not specific in the person, the name, or anything like that, but kind of the demographic of people who did apply?
I don't think so. I think that the only recourse the best recourse that we have with that would be to, if there is questions on what could be shared, those should be addressed to Mr. Martin. I would not want to address them to any individual committee member.
So should we as board members suggest that they contact Mr. Martin?
I would be happy to do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other comment? All right, is there a vote? Or we've had the motion and the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye, or raise your hand. All right, the motion carries 5-0.
With a big thanks to the steering committee and all of its members for the hard
sure.
work they did.
They did a great job. Myself.
Yes, I second that. I think that our steering committee did do an excellent job, and I think that Mr. Martin and KSBA did an excellent job as well, and I'm excited about moving forward with our candidate.
All right. Are there any board member communications that anyone would like to share? All right, hearing none, there are no discussion items and no information items. Mr. Hawkins, there is a need to go into executive session pursuant to which KRS?
It's for proposed or pending litigation. It's item C.
Okay, so is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810 item C? And can we go in? Do we need to come back out from that executive session and go into the next one? Or can we make the vote for both items?
I would probably do it as two separate.
Okay.
That way it's just a little cleaner.
That's fine. All right, is there a motion for item C, pending litigation?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Or raise your hand. Aye. The motion carries 5-0. I do not believe there will be any action items after the executive session. Is that correct, Mr. Hawkins?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. To the board members that are virtual, if you'll join the link that I sent out today, we will connect in the conference room.
She's nervous. She says she's gonna get up at 5:30 in the morning to ride her bike around the block so she can get exercise.
Gotta get that brain working.
She
right?
said somebody told her that, so she's gonna do that.
Oh, for K-Cup?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's
it's her
Will it
first
be,
time.
will it be that right?
Okay, is there a motion to return from executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810C?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass and a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Springate votes aye. Ms. Richardson votes aye. Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8 or 1801F pursuant or for the possible appointment or employment of an school employee?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Glass,
I'll second.
second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Ms. Richards, there you go. Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.